Yep, in addition to that, it's a little bit easier to play than the Abaddon. Don't need to really worry about your own cast range. Your positioning is able to be a little bit more secured, and that's where this jump is going to be absolutely crucial for D2 Hustlers, because if they mess up, then they're going to get saved, they're going to get their spells off, and that's where for Zoomers, they already have Monkey King Pango. They're going to want these long, prolonged fights, and that's where Hustlers, it's the same story. One team wants a long fight, another team wants to cast their ultimates and kill you in their ultimates and then move on to the next target. So we'll have to see if D2 Hustlers can actually hit those priorities, or if this is going to get dragged into more of a For Zoomers camp. I do like the Oracle picked up versus the Grimstruck, however, because you can always cancel out that Inkswell. You kind of kill the play early. In addition to that, it's just double range. Double range versus Sand King. It's going to be very difficult for Monster to walk up in this lane. I didn't think the lane was going to be too bad, but in a vacuum, Sand King versus Clinks, I think, is kind of okay, but the Oracle is definitely going to make it very difficult for him to just get last hits in lane. We're probably going to need to see some lane shenanigans coming in from Devi Lama.
And I like this ban from D2 Hustlers. I think they might have maybe either seen or caught wind of what went down yesterday with that sort of Moo Undying play. They ran the Undying and the Monkey King in a lane that was just exceptionally obnoxious and hard to deal with. So D2 Hustlers taking that one away. Does the position 3 Undying fit into this lineup as well as it did the previous ones? Who knows, but don't take that chance in the slightest. Don't let that sort of Undying play with the Monkey King even become a factor to try and harass up whatever their carry option is going to be here, as they are really just looking for Yuma's hero on the back end of this draft.
Yeah, and a lot of Yuma's classic heroes are still in the pool. We could very likely see him pick up the PA again. We could very likely see him perhaps value that Faceless Void, but I really don't think the Void is going to feel too great. Again, it makes it difficult. You have so many targets that you need to get in your initiation that I think there needs to be a hero like that from Yuma, where if you're able to get on top of these backlines, it's really scary for Zoomers. You need to be really good at gauging what your opponents can actually do in their burst. If you misgauge that timing, then one hero dies, and as soon as a hero dies on the Zoomer side, their lineup really starts to fall apart there. They're really stuck relying on each other, where D2 Hustlers are definitely a little bit more independent when it comes to how they're able to get in and out of these fights, and they're very, very mobile aside from those supports. Both Batrider and Sand King can definitely pick and choose which engagements they're forced to stay in, and that's where I think they might look for a third hero like that to be picked up by Yuma. The only issue is there aren't many heroes that actually win this Clinks matchup. Of course, when you see a ranged carry, you always want to pick up a hero that's going to allow you to pick up a Scotty, because it's just so terrible. If you're a ranged carry and you're getting slowed by a Scotty, it just feels absolutely awful. In that regard, maybe we would see Yuma go for like the Spectre, but it is going to be the Void.
Okay.
That's your third jump, but it's definitely all in on their initiation. If they botch their initiation once or twice, Zoomers are going to be able to punish you hard.
Yeah. High risk, high reward. If the Faceless Void does get the Chrono onto the targets he needs, then D2 Hustlers are looking at maybe not a clean sweep, but a pretty favorable team fight. But outside of that Chrono, that's where things can get a little bit messy. So once more, that execution is going to be paramount. That Faceless Void has got to hit his targets. If he does, well, we'll have to wait and see what Zoomers do. They still have one pick here, so it's not all doom and gloom for them just yet. But, well, they might need someone, I would say, kind of active for them. Although, at this point, there is the possibility that they try to run Gunner on the mid Pango, which, up against the Batrider, kind of a toss-up there in terms of whether they would want to go for it. But they need someone. The Clinks is just going to be sort of sitting back and farming. We've seen that across these first 2 days pretty significantly. That Clinks, with the Barrage, he's so efficient at farming, but you don't really make much in the way of early rotations. So either they commit entirely to just hurdling up and farming long-term, or they need someone here that's going to be a bit more mobile.
Yeah, and the hero I'd really like from Moo, no pun intended, is just the Spirit Breaker. I think that would be a really fantastic choice for them. Be that hero that can go in and really disconnect the team fight. Okay, swapping it around a little bit. Does this mean it's going to be a Moo Monkey King? No, it's actually going to be Moo Tusk. Interesting. I wonder what his build-up's going to be, because we have not seen this hero for a short while here, but as soon as Necrobook got taken out of the game, the hero was dead for a very long time in that offlane position. And really, I don't see too many rhyme or reasons why you would want to force the Tusk in this position. Of course, you're able to save a hero that gets lassoed. You can't do it if you get soulbound, so that's a little bit of a weird choice. And you don't really do much versus the Faceless Void either. So it helps them with their Roche. That was something that I thought they would need to shore up, and that's why I was going to recommend a hero like that Slardar. But okay, Tusk it is.
Yeah, a bit of a question mark there. We'll see, as you said, what the build is from Moo. So I don't know. The time of the position 3 Tusk kind of feels like it passed us by. There was a moment where it was relatively popular. You just sort of paired it up with any other kind of aggressive position 4 hero, and you kind of just ran at the other side in the lanes, but that has not been the case for quite some time. So Moo's going to have his work cut out for him here, but if we're moving maybe back into that territory, you've got the position 4 Monkey King as the hero that'll pair up with it. So there's quite a bit they could potentially do if they do try to get aggressive against that opposing carry.
Yeah, and it's something that they do need to be very cautious of. The only thing that I'm worried about is Yuma going to be able to get enough farm, because he is really reliant for his own damage in the chrono. You can do a lot of damage after the fact or before the fact, but that's where this team fight choreography is definitely going to get really messy really fast if one of your cogs break in the gear. And that's where D2 Hustlers, they have to pick and choose their fights very carefully. Of course, Batrider, that's the best thing about Batrider, is that you have so much vision coming from your sticky napalm. You can actually choose when you want to eventually go in, but still, it's a risky, anytime that you're going to be grouped up as 5 on the D2 Hustler side, it's going to be a risky engagement, and something that for Zoomers, they've got the tools to respond. It's just, this Tusk is still a little bit strange to me.
Yeah, just gonna have to see how that plays out, because if the Tusk falls flat, you know, that's your position 3 hero. Then you're really looking at Gunnar as the guy to initiate the vast majority of your fights, and Gunnar on the Pango in particular is very much up to the task. He could do it. It's just not entirely sure if that's the situation they want. As Devi Llama's going to get hit up there. Good play in from Yodomi with the Heavenly Grace, though, removing a lot of that initial sort of slow. And that does get the Grimstroke away, and for Zoomers, well, they played their hand there. They didn't quite get the kill, but to a certain extent, you kind of like the aggressive attempt, right? Try to get on the board early. They were so close to it. If it weren't for Yodomi sort of coming in and the rest of the team being in a position to back it up, they could have gotten that first blood, but at least the aggressive instinct is there. That's not really the phrase that should probably be used, but it's the closest I can get to. But we'll see whether they continue that kind of aggression in the lane itself with this Tusk.
Yeah, and this is definitely the lane that I'm going to be keeping an eye on. Of course, we have 2 melee heroes versus 2 melee heroes in the bottom lane. It definitely feels like the Monkey King is going to have an absolute field day. Unfortunately, had to skill up the Boundless Strike to attempt that first blood, so we're not going to see those Jingu stacks, allowing Z-Freak to make those early trades. So a little bit unfortunate for him. As well as level 1 Tusk, even though you do have that tag team available to you, versus both Void and Omni Knight, I don't think you can really trade super efficiently there. They don't really care about your low-level damage. The big power spike is, like always, just going to be that level 3 mark where you have the level 2 tag team and then one of your disables on Tusk.
Yeah, it just feels like with the time walk there and with Yodomi eventually having points in Purification, it's going to be a little bit difficult to make that damage stick. But you still have to attempt it. This is not a duo that can really just afford to sort of sit back and play passive and play for farm. So you're going to see them continue to make moves like that. Z-Freak in with the Boundless Strike. They're going to force out that time walk from Yuma, and they're just going to keep going. And maybe eventually someone slips up or they catch someone out of position and a play can be made. But for now, it's just going to kind of be multiple attempts from 4 Zoomers and D2 Hustlers just methodically trying to sort of keep them at arm's length.
Yep.
Yuma, really not having too much in the way of sort of trouble farming right now. That, okay, as I say that, the tower kind of takes one away from him, but this is going to be just fine for Yuma for the time being. So it might be a little bit annoying. Yodomi's going to take a little bit of extra, a lot of extra damage there as he is going to get hit up. There's going to be the shards keeping him trapped in place. Pops the Grace onto himself, but that's not going to be enough. So, well, that's exactly what we were just saying, right? 4 Zoomers, they're going to keep on trying, and if somebody's just that little bit out of position, then one of those plays will eventually hit home, and it is going to be the Omni taken down. So 2 or 3 attempts, but they get first blood.
Yeah, I'm a little bit curious why Udomi is actually that far up in the lane. You want to be playing on the left side when you're playing an all melee lane like this. If you ever threaten that small camp pull, somebody has to walk over to contest you, and it's not like anybody has boots down here. Of course, you are dying on the Omni, so you do just get all of these resources pumped back into you. Udomi's able to purify you once or twice for free. You have a full salve, full tangos, and there's a lot of mana between these heroes, but you definitely don't want to be giving up kills like that. Again, it's not the end of the world, but it is just a little bit unfortunate because you want to keep as many levels on the zombie as possible, so you're going to be sapping a lot from your Void as well.
Yeah, and you take a look, there's a slight level discrepancy here. Moo hit level 3. Maybe what? Third of a level? Half a level in front of Yuma. So, not massive, but it is going to be there. Meanwhile, Z-Freak, yeah, he's just going to do really just standard Monkey King things here. And this is the thing with this duo. Yuma and Udomi, excuse me. They don't have a lot in the way of firepower right now. Maybe a bash can hit from the time lock, but you really don't have the means of keeping anyone directly in front of you for any extended amount of time. And if you do keep someone in front of you, it's because Z-Freak's trying to get the Jingu Mastery up. So one duo is looking to be as aggressive as possible. The other duo really doesn't have the means to do the same. They're just honestly looking for farm for the Faceless Void.
Yeah, and to that point, I think it is going to be a very, very passive game. Of course, Yuma isn't one of those ultra carries. You can see in his shift queue, just going for that Maelstrom. No Battle Fury on board, but once he gets it, he's going to feel pretty safe. And that's where Faceless Void is one of the scarier carries to play into Clanks. And they're going to go on Yuma again, but he just has the time lock in one here. Nice
that
dodge.
Boundless hit, that would have been something, but Yuma's able to get himself away. That Courier has 4 HP. Yuma wants it, but not going to be able to catch up. Now Z-Freak's in a bit of a 1v2 fight, but with the Jingu, he does have a little bit more sustainability to work with, and honestly, kind of comes out ahead, at least in terms of the damage, although Yuma, with the Tangos, with the Salve now being passed to him, really is just going to walk that off. But they will just continue to try again and again for that play. Speaking of trying for a play, what is going on mid? Mr. Jeans, that is a deep dive under a tower, but the shots are going to lock him down. Gunner, 3 points up in that shield crash. He applies the slow, and he's just able to walk away. Devi hits him with the stroke of fate, but that will not be enough. So Mr. Jeans makes the attempt, but Gunner's able to outplay him just that little bit with the damage and the slow.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate that the salve does get canceled there, but that is the issue with this Batrider versus Pango matchup. It was a very quiet matchup for quite a while there, but the one time you try to go for a dive, you get immediately slowed up, and you don't get the follow-up kill, and you're not close to level 6, so it's not like you can make a neat play on the creep wave. And while that goes down, they do get a very nice kill onto Udomi in the bottom lane, but all of this makes sense. I think the unfortunate death mid does kind of suck, and they're going again, but
Gunner's getting
it's just a solo play.
Yeah. Real deep in there with the Rolling Thunder. He's not actually falling back, but the Oracle coming in. Are they really going to try for this? One more hit will do it, and okay. Husky sets it up with the Purifying Flames. Gunner gets it with the Swashbuckle. That did feel a little bit risky, but they're able to find the kill. Now they want a little bit more, but that Inkswell stun is going to sort of push them back a little bit. But now Udomi, he had to push forward to actually get that stun onto multiple heroes, which means he has to now go back up the ramp, and he's not going to be able to do so. Gunner, once again, getting the Swashbuckle in there for the last bit of damage as he picks up the double. And that is 5 straight kills on the board for the side of 4 Zoomers there in a rather strange scenario. It seemed like Gunner was maybe getting caught out. The Rolling Thunder gives him the opportunity to sort of turn it around, and then the support rotations just completely changed the nature of that fight.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate. I think that right now D2 Hustlers are being a little bit too reactive. They're not being preemptive enough. If the Omni Knight can be set up comfortably behind someone, then maybe some of these bait plays can come out. But with the way that even Monster has built up, you aren't going to get any more support aside from the Grimstroke TPing in and casting all the spells he can, and without any real target to stick onto, it just feels like their TP rotations are not going to feel very good whenever these dives do come out. And 4 Zoomers are very good at diving you and keeping that fight going, and it's a problem that really D2 Hustlers can't solve. They need to wait for their later item timings, and it's something that really only the Void doesn't care about. Void can kind of survive through it all, but everyone else is going to be a very easy target for them.
Good news, at least, is that Devi Lama has been doing some serious work here in the jungle. You see the camps stacked up. Mr. Jeans will come over and look to burn through that. Only level 1 Firefly, though, so damage-wise, not quite as high as it could be, but he will get through this eventually, and that is going to be a nice infusion of gold for him, working his way towards those boosts of travel. But here comes Gunnar to ruin the fun, pushing his way in. Husky's going to be here as well. The silence, though, does come out first, so Gunnar is initially going to get turned back, but they still want to keep this going on to Mr. Jeans. They'll slow him up with the shield crash, and now the Rolling Thunder is going to come through. Yodomi is trying to save the day with that Heavenly Grace, but they are continuing forward, or at least Gunnar is, but at this point, it feels like this play's kind of falling apart. Gunnar's just going to use the last few moments to clear out.
Yeah, and it's really good positioning. That's exactly what I wanted from Yodomi. He was already set up in the mid lane. He was just getting levels, and as soon as that dive does happen, he's in the right place at the right time. He's going to get walked down by this Monkey King just a little bit.
Unfortunately, yeah, now he's in the wrong place, as he is going to get taken down. Gunnar, another kill. As, oh, yep, bottom lane. Snowball out from Moo, buying some time. Will it be enough? Gunnar's going to come in to help out, but the knockback is still there, but the slow again from that shield crash is just so rough, but they do get the lasso. Gunnar, he does have some charges on that wand. He is going to be able to pop it. That gets him the swashbuckle, and that is soul crushing. That D2 Hustlers don't get anything out of that. Moo picks up both of the kills, and that was a situation where both of those heroes for 4 Zoomers were close to being taken down. They just needed that little bit more damage, but Moo's able to get away. Gunnar, with that 10 charge wand, was able to heal up and swashbuckle himself out, and it just continues sort of going poorly for D2 Hustlers. It's really just minor things that are sort of turning against them, but minor things repeatedly has them down, 8 kills to none, and now Yodomi's going to get hit up in the middle lane. There's going to be the Fortune's End into the roll, into the Walrus Punch, and Gunnar closes it out with a swashbuckle once again.
Yeah, and with all the levels now that you've been able to get on the Pango and the Tusk, you can just run at your opponents, and this is where Tusk feels absolutely fantastic. You have max level tag team 9 minutes into this game. You do so much damage. It's the same story with the Pango, and I think that's where, for Zoomers, they're looking to set a very similar pace whenever they pick this Pango, where they always just run at their opponents, don't give them any chance to really reset and farm up. The only one farming right now on the D2 Hustler side really is just Monster, and Monster has built himself up to stop a lot of the tower push coming in from 4 Zoomers, something that their lineup isn't really that good at, especially until the Clinks decides to get involved, but that's really the brightest sign for them right now. They don't have too many things going for them aside from that, and looks like there's going to be a big fight over this Ancient stack.
And Moo is moving in, Gunnar's here as well, and this is just kind of the thing. The pace that they played, you were saying in the draft, you were kind of hoping that Moo got put on the Spirit Breaker, and while that was not the pick, the style still very much sort of in that same vein. He has just been so aggressive in the lane, and now even outside of it, making those rotations. That's exactly what you want from the Tusk in any position, but particularly putting it into that core role. And I mean, he's played it pretty well so far. He's actually going for the Echo Saber build for the Tusk, so just trying to get a little bit more aggressive. Speaking of aggression, though, Monster catching out Z-Freak by himself up top. Burrow into the epicenter will get him the damage, and D2 Hustlers takes them nearly 11 minutes, but they are on the board. They get that 0 off of the scoreboard. And you mentioned, really, Monster was the one sort of having the best game on the D2 Hustlers side. He's the one to strike first.
Yeah, and he's the one who needs to be that active playmaker for his team. The damage isn't coming in from your Faceless Void. Right now, you're still recovering a little bit, and Monster is even going aggressive on his Z-Freak, even though he was completely alone up here, and Mr. Jeans is here. Okay.
Do they want to commit the lasso? I'm not sure they actually... Yeah, they don't even need it. Z-Freak's just dead. So, unfortunate for the Monkey King. Tries to get up there to defend his tower. Instead, he's just going to kind of offer himself up as a sacrifice. But over in the middle lane, yeah, Envy going to get hit up. Husky, though, able to hit level 6. Gets him with the False Promise. That almost wasn't enough, actually, as Envy did not have a whole lot of health even after the False Promise came to an end. But it's enough to keep him safe. D2 Hustlers bring 3 heroes mid, but don't get the kill. However, up in the top lane, that creep wave is able to take the tier 1. So they get themselves the tower, even if they don't get the kill, and it looks like some of this early pressure is starting to sort of ease off a little bit for the D2 Hustlers side.
And that's where there is that one problem where who just punches Yuma in the mid lane, but they need to figure out a way for 4 Zoomers to translate this aggressive playmaking into actual structural damage. If they can get a lot of the map out of their opponent's hands, that would be the best case scenario for them. But right now, they're still struggling to make those plays. And the best thing they could do right now is actually, if they catch Mr. Jeans right now trying to farm this stack, it's huge because every single time they force him away from here, you need 10 stacks on these Ancients. Otherwise, it just takes way too long. So you force him to reset it. But I don't think anyone's really making a movement over towards the stack. And this just means Mr. Jeans is going to get quite a lot of gold in his hands, make steadfast progress towards that BKB.
Yeah, it's taken multiple attempts now. Last couple of times he's been interrupted, but he finally gets through really the entirety of that stack. Except for one last Ancient Black Dragon that's being particularly stubborn. There we go. Mr. Jeans will take that down, grabs the bounty. He does leave the Possess Mask here, so not sure if maybe Yuma's going to be sort of swinging by to pick that up, or if they just didn't notice it. But either way, that item does hit the deck, but that is what the Bat Rider needs right now. You take a look at his net worth, he is quite a ways behind some of the cores for Zoomers, so as much progress as can be made in as little time possible is going to be the call for Mr. Jeans, and we're not really seeing Zoomers right now getting all that aggressive. They're trying to maybe hit up that next item timing before they make that move. You see Gunnar farming up in the jungle, Echo Saber complete, he's working towards the sort of early basher, so once they get some of these items, they are going to be quite a bit stronger. Once the Clinks is finally ready to go, they are going to be hitting hard, but there's a little bit of time before that window sort of opens for them, and D2 Hustlers could try and take advantage of it, but right now Yuma going to get jumped in on. He actually time-walked out from the Wukong's command, but that means he still takes the full damage from Mu, but at this point it's really not going to matter. The backup is here. 3 other heroes in position to back up their Faceless Void, and Mu, I mean, he was jumping into what he thought was going to be, you know, a 2v1 for his side, maybe a 2v2 at the worst, but it's pretty much everyone there, and the only good news out of that whole play is that Z-Freak was at least able to bail out before he got caught as well.
Yeah, and that's where you need to be very careful on the Zoomers side. If you get caught out when you aren't necessarily set up, where Husky isn't in a position to find those false promises, what are you really doing on that side of the map? In fact, Mu was incredibly isolated. It was really just him and Z-Freak trying to make those solo plays, where Gunnar and Husky are being way more productive on that bottom side. So it's a little bit strange, but I think that play is just part of the fact that they can't really take any jabs at this mid-tier 1 tower. They just simply don't have the heroes to ever claim that structure. So you'll see them look for these alternative plays instead, try to play more of that pickoff game while they're waiting for their Clinks to really find the farm that he needs. And Envy is going for the Gleipnir build again, but yeah.
Just go straight up the hill, but Monster was waiting. He goes in with the epicenter into the Burrow Strike. Mu dropped low, but not dead. Saved by the False Promise, and Envy, he says, if you're going to go after my teammate, I'm just going to hack away at them with the damage. He takes down 2, and now Mr. Jeans, he's caught in the river. He's going to look for the TP out. Yeah, that's overly optimistic, I'd say, on that TP attempt. Envy's able to sort of lock it down for the triple kill. And Zoomers back on the offensive. We talked about them maybe taking a step off the gas for a moment, but with D2 Hustlers kind of coming onto their side of the map, they saw the opportunity, and really, I don't know, Monster made a good play there, sort of preempting that with the blink into the epi, but they didn't hit up Envy. It was really all concentrated on Mu, and the False Promise just breaks that entire play.
And that's where if D2 Hustlers are unable to break apart their opponents, then it just isn't a fight for them. They will always lose that fight, no matter how good a Burrow Strike it is. If you aren't finding the Oracle and the Tusk at the same time, you're getting set up on by that Monkey King. The fight turns on its head. That was Envy hitting 3 heroes with that Burning Barrage as well. Burning Barrage does so much damage when you're actually able to hit more than one. And here we go again.
Monster's going to get hit up. There's going to be the Snowball. Mu doesn't have the Walrus Punch, though, so Envy's starting to drop low, and Yuma throwing down the Chrono. Envy actually wasn't trapped in it, but he realized at that point he probably wasn't getting away. Tried to hold his ground. He gets taken down. Mu now falls as well. Now they're in onto Gunnar. Gunnar, though, does have the Rolling Thunder, but he's not able to get it off just yet. He's going to get silenced by that Phantom Burst. Now the Lasso comes in to keep him locked down as Yuma gets the double kill, and now they're in onto Husky as well. The Oracle not going to be able to get away from this one. Yodomi finds the kill with the Purification on the very back end of that, and it was a nice play from Zoomers in the previous fight, but the rebuttal from D2 Hustlers is there. 4 kills, no casualties, and I believe they're going to be able to get this tier 1 tower. The Glyph comes through, but if everybody is actually remaining here to hit it, they should still be able to claim the objective.
Yeah, and that's where you definitely overstay your welcome. You don't have the Death Pact, you don't have the False Promise from Husky, you don't even have Gunner in a really easy position to follow up on that Faceless Void after the Chrono does leave,
Oh
and
no!
who's trying for it?
Moo did try for it, but his snowball cut Z-Freak's tree, so he wasn't there to immediately follow it up, but better late than never. Z-Freak does eventually get into there. The Boundless Strike keeps Yuma locked down so Moo can find the kill. So for a moment, it looked like they might have sort of tripped over their own feet, but they do find that big kill. That's the Faceless Void dead for 20. Not a massive window, but Envy's going to try to take advantage of it. Pushing his way into the Roche Pit. Moo with the tag team. Really going to help this one out. The Burning Barrage is there as well, and the question is, do T2 Hustlers even know this is happening? And if they do, can they even do anything about it? Yuma's not up. The Chronosphere wouldn't be available anyway, so you really just kind of have to let this go. The scan now comes through, but it's far too late.
Nope, and that's the tag team, that's the power of the Tusk, and it's a big reason why teams end up picking it up. It feels so good, and now Envy is trying for
comes
the Monster.
Moo can't hit with a snowball, though. Good play from Monster to get out, but they did catch out Yodomi in the shards, but now the GA will be thrown down. Epicenter for Monster is in the middle of all this as well, but Monster himself doesn't really have a whole lot of space to maneuver. He tries to burrow out again, but he's not going to be able to make it away. Moo, even through the False Promise, wasn't getting healed up enough to live, so he does fall, but Envy goes in with another root from that Gleipnir. Now Z-Freak's going to channel out the Wukong's command on the high ground, as Yodomi will fall. Divine Llama's going to get jumped in on as well. Yuma does get the stun in with that... with that Inkswell, but they want more. They've got the lasso on to Gunner. Gunner just kind of, well, thinking he had a chance at a kill, and to be fair to him, he did, but didn't realize Mr. Jeans had been holding the lasso the whole time, so D2 Hustlers lose about half their lineup, but you get Gunner and you get Moo, and you really only sacrifice Monster and the two supports. That's not a bad trade-off, all things considered.
No, and it's not a bad trade considering you used quite a lot on your side as well, but you didn't end up using the Chrono, so as soon as they want to, they can make another play with Yuma. I think Yuma needs to get a little bit more damage. He's looking for this BKB now, so that way he's not going to need to worry about getting stunned up. He needed to get saved by Yodomi there. If he's not Heavenly Graced, he was definitely going to go down to that chain coming out from Gunner. It was a really good chain, but that's the power of Heavenly Grace. You get the shrug off one of those bounces, and then suddenly you can't get the follow-up, and that's where Moo, it's a good snowball initiation on the Monster, but I think both offlaners definitely overstayed their welcome in that fight. They definitely got kited around a little bit, and that's where the damage will start to be seen from really both the Batrider and the Clinks at this point. I don't think Yuma is really too big of a damage source for them, but you stick around too long, and then you are going to have those big napalm stacks. You don't have BKBs. You can't really stick around for too long.
We'll see this time if Four Zoomers can hit a little bit harder and a little bit faster. Because, yeah, as the fight goes on, things get a little bit more concerning. As you said, the napalm, you're sitting in the sandstorm pretty so consistently as Monster. I want to be a little bit careful here. Z-Freak's going to try and track him. Creepwave just saw that movement, though, so Monster should know that something's up.
He can't do anything. He's just going to get collapsed.
And here comes Envy. There's going to be the root from the Gleipnir. They're in with the Boundless Strike as well. They even hit him with the Dust just to make sure there's no shenanigans with that Sandstorm play. And Envy gets the kill. Z-Freak just hops up onto the tree to make sure his teammate gets the vision he needs. So, nice play from Four Zoomers. They could maybe parlay this into a push onto the tower as well. That Creepwave is coming up with the card, and if Envy actually sticks around with it, Tier 2 could be under siege. There's no glyph for D2 Hustlers to save it.
Yeah, and that's where it is really interesting. I've seen really both talents be taken by a lot of Monkey Kings because they're both not bad, but this talent is incredibly annoying for anyone who tries to split push, and that's the role that Z-Freak always likes to play. It's the disruptive Monkey King, the one that will follow around cores, see where the stacks are, and then make his presence known after a while, and so sneaky as well, being a tree on top of a tree. It's actually really hard to spot out if you do have that high ground vision anyway. But that's where we're getting to this point where Eternal Envy is getting the ability to push down these towers, and that's where this game gets a little bit more high stakes for D2 Hustlers, where their long cooldowns are going to be a big drawback. If they aren't able to hit with what they've got, then Four Zoomers have a much more low cooldown oriented lineup. They're definitely able to fight for much longer. Biggest cooldown they've got is more or less that False Promise, and they're only going to use it when D2 Hustlers are on the aggressive, so Four Zoomers can still do this run at you style. Oh, and look top.
The time they need between strikes is so much lesser than their opponents. As speaking of strikes,
Perfect.
Mr. Jeans Oh, man.
D-Freak.
It's
So
just,
good.
yeah. It's just so impressive how much vision he's able to get for his teammates, and it's not just vision. We see a lot of games like that. I think kind of with the Nyx Assassin is the most prevalent, where your player does a lot of scouting, but you don't always turn the scouting into action. Z-Freak, though, no, they've been able to make plays. He's 1, 2, and 10 right now, so he's been involved. He's not just sort of idly keeping tabs on a carry. If he sees someone, he's calling for the reinforcements. He says, we have the chance to find these kills. Now let's keep the pressure on, and a big play like that one. Mr. Jean's getting taken down for quite some time. We do see a smoke response, though, from D2 Hustlers, but smoking without the Bat Rider feels like they're going to be missing a lot of that sort of secondary damage and a little bit of their lockdown as well, but Yuma does have the Chrono, so in the right spot, even without the Bat Rider, they could make something happen. Now the Bat Rider's coming back in. They're going to look to jump in onto Z-Freak. They want a bigger target, though, when they found it. They're in onto Envy, but the BKB had already been popped, so the Clinks really is not that vulnerable right now. But now the lasso will come through. It's immediately canceled by the False Promise, though. So Envy still fighting, turns around. Gleipnir comes through. Mu rolls in onto Divine Llama. They're going to try and find these kills, but with that Soulbind coming in, both Envy and Gunnar were kind of locked together in that fight, and they're not able to really dish out their full damage. Envy falls, Husky's dead, and Gunnar now has to fall back.
Yeah, and that's where the fight goes a little bit too.
Oh, they canceled.
They got Gunnar.
The Yules onto Gunnar. Man, yeah, there's no way out for him. He has really just nothing left cooldown-wise, so they're going to hit him up. Yuma. No, okay, not just Yuma. The whole team is going to hit Gunnar up with the ever so slightly BM tip, but that was the fight that we needed from D2 Hustlers if they wanted to sort of even this one out. You see that net worth less than 1,000 now in Forzoomer's favor, so and that's what you can do with the Chronosphere. Even with the Bat Rider not coming in until maybe a second or two into the engagement, Yuma's Chrono onto Envy isn't enough for them to get the kill immediately, but it breaks up Forzoomer's game plan. It allows D2 Hustlers to just sort of reset and go on wherever they wanted.
Yeah, and it's very surprising for me seeing them actually commit to that fight the way that they did. It was definitely a little bit ugly, but they stay a little bit too long, even though he was able to BKB that Chrono, which stopped a lot of the magic damage coming out from the D2 Hustler side. You don't have BKB after the fact. I think Forzoomers made that push into the triangle just in a little bit too poor of a way. You lost your Monkey King immediately because of just simply a high ground ward placed by D2 Hustlers, and your Aegis times out as well. Okay, they might get Divide here, but oh, not even.
Pushing in, they get that Ink Spell stun, and okay, Z-Freak taken down. Now Monster's in. The Epicenter is a little bit spread out, though. They're not getting the damage they need. Envy, though, down to about half HP, so if they could lock him down, they could find a big kill, but he does get the Death Pact off, but now the Lasso is actually going to pull Husky away. There's no False Promise to save Envy, and now is the time to retreat. Mu, though, kind of stuck on that high ground. They're going to eventually bring him down between Yuma and Mr. Jeans. Mr. Jeans is the one to get the kill. He picks up the double in the fight, and D2 Hustlers starting to feel and look quite a bit more confident in these engagements. They get 3 kills there, and they don't even lose Divine Llama. He really did seem to be almost dead to rights at the start of that fight, but he lives, he turns around, helps his teammates win that one, and Forzoomer's got to be so careful right now. They have kind of lost their hold on this one.
Yeah, and this is where D2 Hustlers have 3 playmakers. On Forzoomers, as much as Gunnar has really been doing the legwork for his team, it's really just him and Mu. Even though Monkey King is a fantastic hero and you're able to scout out so much, the 2 picks he was able to get is proof enough that this monkey is very effective, but you aren't that blink initiator. You aren't that hero that is able to really cause a headache for your opponents, where it feels like playmakers on D2 Hustler side are also killers. They can also definitely find those picks on their own, and that's where Forzoomers are a little bit more reliant on each other. And even Husky, not having False Promise there, is still looking at that level 12. He's going to be able to get it before his next cast, but they're just pushing in without their ultimates, and D2 Hustlers are always there with the punishment.
Yeah, it just felt like a lot of the sort of indicators for Forzoomers that their aggression was working early, with heroes like Mu just kind of going in alongside Gunnar. Now that's starting to become a little bit less effective. D2 Hustlers have built up their strength. They've started itemizing a little bit more to avoid or even sort of counteract a lot of that just sort of run at you ability. So Forzoomers, you don't want to lose the aggression. You can't just sort of sit back and just try to farm this out, because that turns into a very strange sort of scenario for them. But you have to find a way to maintain aggression, but not necessarily in the way that you were before, because obviously back-to-back team fight losses, the run at you strat is not paying off anymore.
Yeah, and that's where, unfortunately, for Zoomers need to really consider what they're able to do. It'd be completely unfortunate for them if this Roshan respawned in 7 seconds here. I think for Zoomers now want to recount what they're actually able to do, place down an area of the map where they want to play around. And you look at for Zoomers' vision, they placed down all of their wards pretty much in this bottom side of the map when they were able to get that outpost, and then never made a move on that mid tower. They keep on fighting in the enemy team's triangle, and I don't really understand why they keep going there, because it's not like Roshan's alive. It's not like they're trying to catch their opponents necessarily off guard. And you're playing into a lineup that already feels like it's a lot easier for them to execute just right off the bat. So right now, D2 Hustlers, if they want to, they could push the tower. If they want, they could check out this Roshan. Again, if he responds pretty soon here, it's going to heavily favor them. Because for Zoomers, I think they really need to rethink how they take their upcoming team fights. Don't even have the Rolling Thunder on Gunner because he thought he was going to get picked off in the mid lane.
And meanwhile, for D2 Hustlers, more of the same. This execution from them has been, at times, maybe sort of ad hoc, a little bit thrown together, trying to react to when 4 Zoomers come at them. But for the most part, they've kept their cool. They've been able to sort of throw out those abilities, and Yuma's been managing the Chronosphere quite nicely. Still has it up and active right now. So that was the concern that you were sort of mentioning earlier on with that sort of long cooldown, not just on the Chrono, but for some of the other abilities as well. How well can D2 Hustlers sort of manage themselves? If they need all of those abilities up to take a fight, then you are kind of working around a predictable timer. But so far, we've seen them pull off plays even with some of those abilities either unavailable or available, but just not committed. Looks like we will be getting back into it. We'll see what goes down with that Roche, though. 5 seconds for that potential early respawn.
Yeah, and it's not even that D2 Hustlers can necessarily do it really quickly. And I say that as a DD. Can you imagine if Roche respawned with the DD rune outside the pit? What a world we would live in. But this is still a really good position that D2 Hustlers have found themselves in. And now it's them that are actually going to look for the split push. It's so difficult to catch the monkey, but if they're all set up on that hill, maybe they can find him. But 4 Zoomers also are still looking for that fight. You never want to get forced into your jungle after losing a fight. You always want to try and find some sort of engagement. But that's where this game is going to refocus around this hill here, and one that I don't think D2 Hustlers can control just yet.
Yeah, they're going to back off rather than get caught. The Gleipnir momentarily hit onto the Grimstroke, but Devi able to just force staff himself away. And at that point, if you're Envy, you're not chasing that far. So that is effectively going to reset things here. But Hustlers, I think, unaware of the fact that there is this ward sort of sitting up on that eye spot. So Yuma's kind of farming up here, but he's farming underneath his opponent's vision. I don't think 4 Zoomers are going to try to come get him, but they're keeping tabs on about 2 or 3 heroes in this triangle, and we might see them sort of plan their next move accordingly, although right now it really feels like the focus is just more on trying to pick up those items. In fact, the Clinks not even on this side of the map.
Yep, and that's why I think right now they're still playing a little bit cautiously, patiently. Everything is going to be what can you amass before this final Roshan is going to get picked up. Unfortunately, smoking underneath a nice observer ward planted by 4 Zoomers a long time ago, but there's also a observer ward back here, like you said before, going for the jump.
There's the BKB. Mr. Jeans needs to hit up somebody at this point. Monster, though, does get the Inkswell stunned down into the burrow. Yuma's going to pop the Chrono onto about 3. And, well, they've taken down Husky, so the False Promise is out of the equation. Seafreak will now fall as well, so that's going to bring an end to the Wukong's command. They need more than the 2 supports, and they actually need to keep Monster safe. Nice burrow to the high ground, but that projectile already in the air. Envy's able to hit him up. Will be able to find that kill. But now, do we see a second round? Yuma's coming in. He's going to drop down that dilation onto about 3, but Husky back into the fight, able to get off that False Promise. So that's going to keep Gunner fighting, at least for now, but they've got to continuously heal him up. He is taking a pretty substantial amount of damage, and they don't actually heal him in time. Gunner is going to fall. Meanwhile, Yuma does get hit by that Fortune's End, but Yodomi's able to hit him up with the Grace. That's buying Yuma enough time to sort of bounce around here with that Time Walk, but the strength on the Hustler side is waning and also getting a little bit separated, but now they'll regroup. Mr. Jean's coming in, but that Inkswell stun actually doesn't hit anyone, but Yuma is still there with the bashes. Moo will get bashed up, taken down. Husky now looking to fall for the second time as Yuma will finish him off, and that leaves Envy really as the only man in this fight. He's going to get silenced up, but they need to slow him down to actually catch him. Mr. Jeans, though, coming in, looking for the knockback with the... knockback there with the Flame Break, but Z-Freak with the Boundless Strike actually prevents him from closing the gap, and it looks like Envy will be okay, but if you're 4Zoomers, it feels like you lost quite a bit more in that engagement compared to what they sort of managed to really pick up for themselves.
Yeah, and it's really unfortunate. As the fight goes on, you just see Yuma shrugging off so much damage where they need to target other people. They need to find other people to really try and kill. Because right now, Mu spent maybe 3/4 of his time trying to do anything to Yuma to keep him out of this fight. He simply gets time dilated after each cast. He doesn't get any more spells off. And then Yuma presses one button and then walks away. And they can't give up this Roche. They have to come here. They've got Monkey King.
They do. The Wukong's command is back up. Envy's moving his way over. Gunnar has the blink, so they're going to make the move, but those shards actually sort of disrupting everyone on both sides, but they're still in. Mr. Jeans will be taken down. Yuma now has a time walk out of the pit, but that means here comes 4Zoomers looking to finish it off. Can they get back in time? No. Envy is going to be able to claim the Aegis. Monster gets taken down. Technically speaking, D2 Hustlers will be the ones to get the credit for the Roche kill, but that's really not of any consequence right now. With Yudomi still on the run, Snowball got to stun him up, and there's going to be the shards to keep him locked in place as well. So 3 dead, Aegis into the hands of your Clinks, and I believe they got the shard as well. Now Envy actually one more kill to clean up onto Divine Llama. So really very nicely done by 4Zoomers. You said, ET, they can't afford to just give up Roche, and to a certain extent, if you're D2 Hustlers, we saw this in the previous series as well. This is now twice today we've seen a team sort of goes for Roshan, and they have this Obs Ward set up to guard the river, but they didn't have enough vision on the actual high ground to see that maneuver coming in. There were about 3 or 4 heroes for 4Zoomers who just sort of snuck their way over undetected.
Yeah, and I really don't think D2 Hustlers needed to do that. Neither team is really too good at Roche. I don't think 4Zoomers could have snuck it before Yuma had his Chrono back, and 4 of your teammates die while you have Chrono up in 10, 15 seconds. They just had no business going into the Roche pit like that. And then they really didn't respect the Monkey King ring on top of them. They maybe thought that they could finish it off before anyone on 4Zoomers could mobilize, but really big throw, honestly, because up until that point, it felt like there was a lot of issues that 4Zoomers weren't dealing with, but now we are really going to rely on Yuma to find a big Chrono. Without it, you're not really going to see D2 Hustlers make too many aggressive moves, where 4Zoomers now can afford to make those aggressive moves with this Aegis on Clinks. You're going to see Envy always lead the charge because he's got 2 lives. He doesn't really care about losing that Aegis as long as he can get trades with it. And that's where I think you're going to see 4Zoomers stamp their feet in this middle tower. And how do D2 Hustlers want to progress forward? It's very risky for them to make these decisions now because, again, if 4Zoomers can be in an aggressive position on their side of the map and you use your big cooldowns, you are going to lose buildings.
Yeah, so D2 Hustlers in a very rough position here. A successful teamfight victory for them, though. Could turn it around, but as you said, it's going to come down to Yuma now. Really, so much of their success will sit on his shoulders. Mr. Jeans can maybe get in for the occasional pickoff with the lasso play, but if you really are looking for that 5v5 fight, it's got to be the Faceless Void. And right now, Yuma really doesn't look like he wants any part of this engagement. You see him just moving all the way to the other side of the map, trying to farm his way towards that next item. But while he's farming, the Clinks just finished off the Daedalus. So the damage output for Envy is even more sort of intimidating. And they really want to try this. They're looking at the high ground right now. Envy's starting to set up those skeleton archers. Obviously can't help him with the tower, but it makes life more difficult if D2 Hustlers want to try to push in. Monster's going to go for it, though, but immediately going to get stunned up. He has to be force-staffed back in. And yeah, that's the exact sort of reason why you set up like that. If Monster tries to go for it, then there will be consequences. At least his teammates were there to sort of pull him back out of the fire, but they weren't really able to make too much progress.
Yeah, and it's very unfortunate. If they were able to find a position there, then I think they would have been a lot happier, but it's okay. You are going to take the entirety of the map now. 4Zoomers don't really have a reason to ever get forced out. There are some big items being completed by pretty much everyone. A bunch of BKBs on deck, as well as the full Daedalus being completed by Envy. Now, Envy can either look towards what could be a Satanic, what could be a Scotty. He's got a bunch of clarities on the Crow right now, but there is only going up for this Clinks, as well as you see him getting close to that level 25, where you can no longer really find that burst damage on him. You need to play around that death pack timing, and if you don't, you're going to get punished. And That's where Yuma, who was able to finish a Scotty of his own, he really doesn't have the biggest damage coming from him. He doesn't have an MKB, there's no butterfly, there's no completed Mjolnir. He's going to struggle to finish off a lot of these targets in Chrono unless they're already a little bit weak, and you're still contesting with this Oracle. It just feels like this is where for Zoomers are going to make D2 Hustlers engagements more and more complex, and if they're not able to hit their marks, that's where I think for Zoomers might just be able to walk this one in. I don't know if they're going to get too crazy with this Aegis. I think this is, again, going to be a little bit of a farming Aegis, finish off a lot of your big items, but then they can definitely afford to go onto the high ground.
Only about 15 seconds left, but there's the jump in. Okay. They might kill Envy a little bit too early, but okay. Husky hits him up with that false promise, so honestly, that may work in D2 Hustler's favor, but that still requires them to actually finish off the Clinks, and right now, they do finish him off, but not before the Aegis sort of does its work. So Envy's back in. Husky, though, does get picked off. So they've gotten through one life and one of the supports, but now there's Moo in with the snowball, connecting onto a couple of heroes, throwing down the shards as well. And all of a sudden, this battlefield is so chaotic. Yuma, though, still trying to fight his way through this, but now he's got to time walk off that damage. Here comes Gunner, though. BKB active, jumping into the fight with the shield crash. They've locked down Mr. Jeans. They'll finish him off, but it does come at a cost. Envy gets finished off, and now the bash is on Gunner, actually keeping him from really charging any further forward. He can't quite find these kills, and Yuma may very well be able to bring him down before Monster will fall. That is some fantastic RNG for Yuma, really, as that Pango just kept on getting bashed up, couldn't finish things off, and, well, D2 Hustlers, I mean, that goes incredibly well. Mr. Jeans does die, you have to use a buyback on your Grimstroke, but you wipe out everybody, and you get through the Aegis and take down Envy the second time.
And that's where you had to commit that BKB on Envy so early in that fight just to survive a little bit longer. I think that was on Monster's first go around, but Monster has gotten himself to the point where he is not an easy target to kill. He has so much armor. The skeleton archers really aren't doing that much versus him, and Yuma is still not a target for you to kill. He's still incredibly difficult for anyone to fight up against, but the longer these fights go on, the easier it is for D2 Hustlers to start tearing you apart. Once those BKBs are stuck, you saw there was 4 or 5 stacks of napalm on everyone, fighting in Sandstorm, getting Blink Bro struck over and over again, and Husky wasn't even able to get a false promise off because Yuma hounded him at the beginning of those fights. I think for Zoomers, they pressed the issue there, but they just simply weren't set up enough to find maybe a counter kill onto Monster, because that was a one-man chrono. It was just to get the Aegis, and then it ends up working. I don't think there are many situations where that should ever work, but there was just not enough setup for Zoomers.
And now Yuma was leading the charge into the base. He got the tier 2, he got the tier 3. The ranged racks now is going to fall in just a moment too, so that is a nice, real push in from D2 Hustlers, realizing those death timers are going to maybe line up a little bit, but they were anticipating that Zoomers wouldn't immediately look for the fight, and they were correct. But now Yuma, oh boy, he's starting to feel quite a bit more confident. You see that jump in, he had the reverse time walk to get himself out, but if anyone got caught out there, the chrono would be sort of dropped down, and Zoomers would be forced to sort of take the fight inside of their own base. So you're able to sort of avoid that, dodge that bullet for now, but the fact that D2 Hustlers are looking for plays like that kind of shows you where they are mentally at this point in the game, as Envy, yeah, just trying to prevent that split push a little bit. TP's home before anyone would catch up to him, but Yuma does not care. Keeps on pushing and takes the tier 1 tower.
Yeah, and even Monster checking a little bit after the fact there, but this is still a problem that now Zoomers are deciding that split push is their answer. They need to force in these waves, wait for their next batch of items, something that I thought they were going to do with this Aegis, but they want to push the issue instead, and they're going exactly for what I thought Envy would want as well. He's trying to get that Satanic up. Once he does, he can survive a little bit longer after that BKB is committed, but this is still going to feel very difficult for them going forward. There's just so much healing on the D2 Hustlers side, and this heavenly graced Faceless Void, who still does not care about anything in this game. You just don't have very much natural lockdown on the Zoomers side, and we haven't seen, I think, that big role coming in from Gunner, and we're playing really far past that big opening that they had in the early stages of this game. I really feel like Zoomers have lost the majority of their momentum, even though they are having a successful split push right now. Envy's got to be careful.
They're looking to move in. They've caught out Envy for now. Can they actually get onto him, though? They're going to hit him up with a silence. There's Yuma with the chrono. Connecting Husky, though. Yeah, he was able to drop down the false promise. Envy, though, is still taking a lot of damage. Now they've got him in the lasso. They're going to pull him away. Guardian Angel, meanwhile, coming out from Yodomi. And Envy, he is dead. They could not heal him enough. Monster's going to get taken down in exchange, though, as Gunnar does roll his way forward with that Rolling Thunder. But now, the fight's a little bit spread out. Mu has the BKB up, but the bashes are still really locking him in place. Can they catch up to him? Well, they can if they do that. Time walking his way forward, but Yuma's taking a hell of a lot of damage. Where's the save? There's no one to back him up. Yuma will fall, buys back immediately, though. But at this point, I'm not really sure if they can go in again, or maybe they can. Yuma's back up, but so too is Envy. Yuma, though, gets rooted. BKB not up for 35, so at this point, that Faceless Void has to be so incredibly careful. If he dies a second time, there is no more fight.
Yeah, the field definitely gets leveled out there. I think Yuma, he jumped forward thinking he would be able to backtrack back with a reverse time walk, but it was Mu with the really good cancel there on the snowball and was actually able to punish this Faceless Void who doesn't have his 25 yet. I think if he has that backtrack, there's no chance of him dying like that, but instead giving now a win condition over to the Four Zoomer side. Now, at the same time, Envy does not have buyback, so if this Clinks does go down, this game gets very, very complicated, and that's where everything is going to happen around this Roche pit. And a Roche that, do D2 Hustlers want to do this without Chrono? I don't think they're going to get the choice.
They can't even get there in time, yeah. I mean, you look at them, they're kind of milling about outside of their base thinking about it, but that's time that they could not afford to spend. Roche goes down, Envy gets the Aegis, Cheese is picked up by Gunnar. And I think Envy, did he grab? Yeah, he did. He grabbed the Ags upgrade as well. So Clinks is looking pretty hot here. I think he's closing in on that Satanic too. So Power Spike sort of coming maybe a little artificially for Four Zoomers with that Roche attempt, but whatever gets the job done for them. They've grouped up now in the top lane, and they are looking for this fight. Buybacks sort of at an all-time low here on both sides. So the engagement will still be risky, and we have seen before D2 Hustlers were able to get through that Clinks even with the Aegis, but it took a lot out of them to be able to pull that off, and no guarantees that they can do it again as Yuma just kind of going in, faking him out, seeing if he can maybe force anybody into, you know, panicking on the BKB or popping some sort of defensive ability, but the Four Zoomers are going to be a little bit more disciplined than that, not looking to blow their advantage right now.
No, they want to be a little bit more passive. They know what happened last time. They try to get aggressive a little bit too early, take the entire map, take the bottom wave, take the outpost. They can play a little bit more methodically here, where D2 Hustlers are definitely feeling the pressure, at least for the next 5 minutes here, until Yuma does have that buyback. And Yuma going for an interesting build. He's looking for an Orchid, actually, so he can maybe look to punish, again, the time after the BKBs. That's where D2 Hustlers really start to come into their own. If they can cut out the fight until then, that's exactly what they want. And Yuma even farming underneath a ward is a little bit scary here, but that's where D2 Hustlers still have him beat. They're a lot more mobile. Unfortunately, Devi looks like he will be going down here.
Yeah, he is not quite as mobile as his teammate, so Four Zoomers will take him down, but the Devi sacrifice gets the Faceless Void out of there. The problem is Devi had already used his buyback, so it's an extended sort of death for him. He's gone for 90 seconds and doesn't really have any way back in right now, so they're going to be without him for quite some time. I really don't think Four Zoomers were tracking that in the slightest, and even if they were, having the Grimstroke down is nice, but it's not really a let's go straight in for the high ground kind of benefit, so they will continue to just sort of farm up across the map, but always got to keep an eye out on that sort of ticker for the Aegis. 2.5 minutes for Envy. By the time the Aegis expires, I think he's pretty much going to be back up to having his buyback off cooldown, though, but you got to wonder, will Four Zoomers look to sort of force the issue, try to make some sort of play while they have those 2 lives up?
Yeah, and that's where I honestly don't think that they will. I think that instead they're going to opt to try and finish off a lot of these big items, something that they should have done with their previous Aegis, because right now they have the best case scenario versus Faceless Void, whereas right now if you're D2 Hustlers, you just want to delay as much as possible. You can't afford to chrono an Aegis target, especially now that Clinks is level 25. You might not actually die in those chronos anymore, especially with the Satanic combined with that Oracle's False Promise. If he gets that off, it's just going to be a full health Clinks after the fact. And if you commit your chrono in such a singular way as we've been seeing Yuma commit it, you just can't do it. It'll break your base. And that's where we saw them get Roche for free, more or less, because Yuma had committed that chrono in a way that didn't immediately yield results.
So you see D2 Hustlers, as of right now, kind of playing the waiting game. They don't want to fight into the Aegis. They're kind of, for the most part, going to be okay with waiting out that timer. And I say they're going to be okay with it. I think it's just because they don't have better alternatives. But you see them all just kind of hanging out. The downside is no one is farming right now. So this is really just kind of them pushed back into their own base. Whereas for Zoomers are trying to take control or take advantage of the control they have over the map.
Yeah, and that's where it is still very difficult for Zoomers to ever break the base. They are going to need to wait out really of everything. They need to wait for their big opening here, and I think that comes back to this Tusk pick a little bit, where you don't have that guaranteed blink initiator. Snowball's a fantastic spell, but it's not good for starting the party. Same with Rolling Thunder. You really want to be playing second fiddle to something, but instead it's really been them forcing the engagement. I think this Abyssal Blade finished up on the Pangolier might be the thing to actually get some of these team fights going, but the respect given right now to D2 Hustlers is definitely deserved, but they're making the move. They know that Aegis is timing out pretty soon here. Yeah, they smoke literally on the Aegis timeout, so here we go. They're split from the Clinks as well.
Let's see if they can make it happen. Either go for the rest of the lineup or isolate the Clinks, but Yuma's going to reveal himself mid, trying to maybe act as a little bit of bait here, just in case. For Zoomers, though, very wisely backing away from that. They're not going to get caught out. Yuma, I mean, if he's there, pushing out the middle lane that far by himself, it's because he's not actually by himself. So they're not going to fall for that, but hey, this allows D2 Hustlers to now push out of the base. They're pushing out the lanes. They're sort of retaking a little bit of control and vision in the south side jungle. So you may not have found that sort of initiation with the Aegis timer, but they're at least creating a little bit of breathing room for themselves moving forward.
And it's this breathing room that it's all you can ask for right now, because as of currently, For Zoomers is playing 90% of the map, where D2 Hustlers are still stuck in their base, more or less. They do catch a whiff of Z-Freak for just a second there, and they do make the move out just to D-Ward, but unfortunately, that is all that this will accomplish. I don't think D2 Hustlers are going to feel too confident in staying outside of the base, but maybe with this buyback coming up in 45 seconds, Yuma is feeling a little bit more confident, but that's where For Zoomers could look to cut in and find that back line. So D2 Hustlers need to be really careful with gauging where their opponents are. Otherwise, we could see this game fall apart really quickly.
Yeah, Monster just got himself a heart. Okay. Not exactly standard fare on the Sand King builds we've seen in the past, but this is the role that he kind of has to step into, with Yuma and Mr. Jeans, rather, as the two other cores. They're heroes that can maybe get in and out, but I don't think they really want to be that guy just standing in the middle of it all, whereas Monster, with the Blink, with the Epicenter, with the Burrow Strike, would very much like to be that guy just directly in the middle of that fight. So, doing his best to tank up a little bit. Obviously, the strength, sort of, in a roundabout way, helps him as well, as Mr. Jeans. And they do it. The Blink is there. They need to make the jump. Moo actually, oh boy. He is now stuck on the cliff. He does have a BKB to work with, though. Meanwhile, Yuma holding the chrono. Doesn't want to use it just yet. Looking for the bigger targets. He sees Envy now. If he can get this down, that is a chrono onto 3. Husky, though, is waiting for his moment. Holding onto the false promise. He'll use it there to try and save Envy. But the fight actually continues on. But Envy, look at all this. Look at all the skeletons he's dropped down. This is so much damage. The Burning Army with that Aghanim Scepter upgrade is, well, kind of terrifying, but it's not quite enough to fully dissuade Monster and Yuma. They push in for one final kill there on the backline onto Z-Freak, but the rest of the lineup, they're a little bit spread out right now, and Gunner is actually tracking this one down. Once his BKB wears off, though, he is in some trouble, but this fight just really will not stop. Yuma's going to get jumped in on. He needs the time walk here. He is going to be able to walk off that damage. Now comes back in with the reversal, looking to really take down anyone. Moo is the one dropping low. They'll get him first. Husky now falls as well, but both of those supports immediately buying back. Meanwhile, Mr. Jeans tried to jump in, very low on HP, but he drops Envy low enough for the rest of the roster to get in there and finish the kill. Envy will fall. Now Z-Freak's going to get silenced up. Monster blinks forward, gets the Inkswell stun down, but Z-Freak not dead yet. He is still alive thanks to the false promises. Husky was able to get back into this, but here's the thing. Without Envy, do they have the damage to really do this? Right now, it's looking like the answer is no. Z-Freak is doing his best. Once that false promise ends, though, he really is in a bit of a bad way here. His BKB is going to be wearing off, but Gunnar looking to reinitiate, using the roll-up, just trying to reposition, hoping for the kill onto Monster, but they don't quite have the damage. The Sand King is able to get himself away. He'll now blink out. Mu, though, still fighting. Oh my god. Snowball coming in. How is this fight not over? Mr. Jeans now comes in with the lasso that will lock the Tusk down. They need a little bit more damage to finish him off, and they will finally get it. Now Z-Freak has no backup, and that is actually the end of it. Pangolier buys back, but there's no way Gunnar can get back into the fight. At this point, though, he's literally the only man still alive for 4 Zoomers. Everyone else is dead, and there are no buybacks available, and now Yuma wants to push forward. One bash away from making something happen here. Gunnar's got to be careful. He's able to blink himself out for now, but this is going to give D2 Hustlers free reign in their opponent's base.
And I wonder if Yuma is going to refocus on the T-Force instead, but that is everything. That is 4 buybacks coming out from 4 Zoomers. The only one who doesn't have buyback is the Clinks, and this is where they refocus. And all Gunnar can do is try to get these waves out and hope he doesn't get lassoed here. If he gets lassoed, he might get chain disabled pretty much to death, but he's doing a good job so far.
There's the chrono. Okay. That may just be the end of it. Monster's even going to come in with the epicenter. The Pangolier gets hexed up, taken down. And that pretty much will spell the end of it. The glyph is going to come out, but at this point, I'm not really sure that's going to matter. Actually, hold on. I'm going to say not going to matter, but where's the creep wave? There we go. Just outside the base. So it is going to make it back in. That backdoor protection really won't kick back in any significant fashion. And D2 Hustlers should be able to close this one out. 4 Zoomers, though, they're not conceding defeat just yet, but at this point there is an Oracle and really not much else. But Envy, I mean, he's back up, but without the glyph, I don't really think this matters. D2 Hustlers, okay, I thought maybe they'd just go for the Aegis, or the Ancient rather, but they actually realize they can get the kills. They take Husky out right away. Envy with his BKB is going to last a few more seconds, but not much longer than that. And that will be the end of it. They focus back in onto the Ancient, the GG will be called, and D2 Hustlers are able to get the win.
Yeah, gut game from the Biolama. Just a real big struggle fest, honestly, for them. I feel like they didn't need to throw their entire game right there. There was still a lot more to play for this time around. There was going to be the next Roche. There was going to be playing around the fact that they didn't have Chronosphere on Yuma for a little bit longer. That fight just got so dragged out, and the strongest hero on 4 Zoomer's side was that Clinks, and as soon as you drop down both of those skeleton armies, you have to run away. The problem is that 4 Zoomers ran away from their own skeleton army. The fight got dragged out more towards Gunnar, who was 1v2ing both Mr. Jeans and Devi Lama for a very long time there. And when it refocuses all the way away from everything that you've really spent the majority of that team fight setting up, your Clinks is now stuck without BKB, without Satanic, without Refresher, and none of the skeletons. So he gets cleaned up, everybody gets cleaned up. You fight in that really important cliff area near the Dire Outpost, and you flood your buybacks there into a fight where you ran out of gas 30 seconds ago. I think 4 Zoomers were incredibly stubborn keeping that fight going, and they almost deserved to lose after that point. They flooded so many TPs into heroes that either were dead or they thought that they could maybe get some returns, but Envy was not coming back into that fight. He simply didn't have gold for the buyback, so I really don't think that needed to be the pyre that 4 Zoomers died on, but that's just how they wanted to end their game. And I think really underestimating how well this Omni Knight would have really been able to kite them out, because so many times Yuma barely got the time lock off. So many times Mr. Jeans was barely able to get his BKB off, and they just got overextended so far.
Every single core on the side of D2 Hustlers in that last fight had a situation where they were sitting on a couple hundred HP and they got away. Mr. Jeans flew out with the Firefly. We saw Yuma time walking. Monster was able to sort of burrow strike and then blink into the Roche pit. So 4 Zoomers were almost there. And yeah, as you said, it feels like they all bought back, but they sort of staggered their reinitiation. If everyone sort of uses those buybacks, fine, but regroup in your base, maybe look for a secondary fight. But at that point, they felt they might have lost the initiative. But the problem is everyone buys back other than Envy, who couldn't, as you said. And the D2 Hustlers, they had to work for it, but they hold the line. And I do want to point out once again, looking kind of like one of the earlier games we saw today, this graph is going to be particularly harsh if you're 4 Zoomers. You really kind of just let that one get away. They're up by nearly 15,000 net worth and experience, and you end up allowing that comeback to sort of knock them off their feet, so to speak. So unfortunate for 4 Zoomers, they're not going to be happy, but if you're D2 Hustlers, we've seen a lot of them in terms of grit, perseverance, whatever phrase you want to sort of use. They were down pretty big there in the late game stage, and they just didn't give up, and they get their 4th win now of this group stage, improving the record to 4-1 with a chance to push it even further with this second game coming up.
Yeah, and they'd love to win out even further here. I think now for Zoomers just need to rethink what they can do if they really want to look at these hero picks. I think the Monkey King worked fantastic yesterday, but maybe consider that this Bat Rider is a little bit too much for them. And this was even with Mr. Jeans somehow solo killing Gunner. I don't think that's supposed to happen, but really look at this Bat Rider under the microscope, because this is the second time we've seen it first phased and be completely successful.
So after some shenanigans on the first day, so far here on day 2, we've seen 2 Bat Rider matches and 2 successful performances. So we'll see if the Bat Rider gets focused down ban-wise in... Whoops. That's great. I'm just accidentally clicking all the buttons. Hi, again. Sorry about that. We'll see if the Bat Rider gets focused on again for that second game. As we were about to jump to that commercial anyway. I just jumped the gun because I'm just so excited for the ad break. But we will be moving into that in just a moment. So apologies for that, folks. Sorry for those of you we sort of freaked out a little bit. But game 2 between D2 Hustlers will be coming, or excuse me, between D2 Hustlers and 4 Zoomers will be coming up in just a little bit. So this time we are, for real, going to the ad. Stick around. We'll be bringing game 2 your way in just a little bit.